sign. Smoky in the air, that's a lot of pine. Pockets running over with the dollar sign. Try to take it from me. Yeah. Big time. Big time. Big time.
Welcome to episode 264 of Thorson and Jawn. I'm Gail Saunders here with Evan Hollywood Hearn and Mr. Primo in the building. Today we were talking about the wide receivers, a little Eagles stay or go wideouts. Obviously, what's that?
Should I stay or should I go now? You gotta sing a song.
Maybe we could do that. But obviously, there's a lot of other positions that the Eagles might want to tackle first. But we thought the wide receiver position was a position that sparked some conversation and some passionate vibes from. You know, there's particular wide receivers. I'm not gonna say names right now, but just overall that spark controversy and arguments on the timeline. Obviously, it's the off season, so we're gonna start going through the roster and seeing who should stay or who should go. You know, we're not the be all the end all, but we're gonna give our best shot at it. You know, so I mean, Evan, how are you feeling today, man?
I'm doing pretty well. You know, I just squeezed myself into the smallest parking spot in all of Philadelphia, so I have a little bit of pride going on right now. I'm feeling pretty accomplished after I pulled that one off. But while we're on the topic of Eagles wide receivers, obviously we were all head over heels when we got Devonte Smith last year. There was a lot of huge names in the top of the draft, wide receiver wise last year. And we ended up getting one of those guys. I couldn't be happier that Devonte Smith is an Eagle. However, once you get beyond him in the depth chart, it starts to get pretty bleak. And if we're talking about building a roster that Jalen Hurts can compete with, this isn't going to do it. It's a bunch of youth on here. I think this can be fixed somewhat in free agency, but ultimately I think the real goal for me is a big name in free agency and potentially, drafting a wide receiver somewhere in the draft. I mean, if we end up picking with all three picks, I wouldn't mind in the first round. I wouldn't mind if we took a wide receiver in the first round, but other than that, I think that's more of a day two type pick.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. We're on a subject that I'm really looking forward to talking about, wide receivers. I mean, I'm again looking at this list as well. It's definitely time for some change after seeing the tremendous games during the playoffs and in that Super Bowl. And we in order for us to go ahead and compete at that level, we got to go ahead and make some serious changes. So, I agree. This wide receiver lineup that we got right now is not going to do it for us. Looking at this free agency list, a couple stars in there could definitely come in here and get us to that level. I'm excited to go through this list, and I got some favorites here that I'm going to go ahead and definitely talk about later on.
I mean, a lot of people are going to have their favorites via free agency. A lot of people are going to have their favorites via the draft. So we'll talk about a couple prospects, break them down. But overall, it's stay or go, breaking down the wide receiver group. Mm-hmm. Let's see. I mean, obviously, there's a guy who's near and dear to our wide receiver one right now. I think Devonte Smith has earned that right. I mean, he could be a 1B with a veteran 1A coming in here. That would be nice. If Devonte talked about having that veteran wide receiver presence across the way from him. I think he was speaking with Jonathan Clark on that one. John Clark. So I feel like just having a guy that he could depend on, would be awesome. But, overall, his game, he stepped up throughout the season, almost hit 1,000 yards. We haven't had a 1,000 wide receiver in a long time. Who was it? Macklin was the last
one on his prove it deal, no less. We gave him a prove it deal. He proved it, and then we let him walk.
I mean, overall, Devonte Smith, he's a guy who's been I'd say consistent weapon. I think we all know that he can give us a little bit more. I don't think that has anything to do with his play. I think if the QB play steps up a little bit more, I think Devonte Smith has a bigger season, a more successful season. But overall, I just thought in year one, Devonte Smith showed up exactly like we said he was going to. You guys agree?
I
I agree.
100% agree. And
100%.
when you consider the fact that, like, what was the biggest knock on Devonte Smith before he got drafted? It was his size. Everyone was worried that this guy isn't big enough to play in the NFL, to take hits like that. Just to play every game. He stayed healthy. Devonte Smith was able to contribute all year long. And like you said, Gail, like, he obviously was the number one receiving weapon that we have, maybe aside from Dallas Goedert. But once you start to put pieces around him, he becomes that much more open. If you have some legitimate targets that are on the opposite side of the field as him, Devonte Smith's numbers and volume goes up when you have to respect the other side of the field. So I think that the sky's the limit, honestly. For like, I don't see why, if we pull in a legitimate wide receiver too, why Devonte Smith doesn't easily clear 1,000 yards next year.
Yeah, I'm guilty when it comes to the statement about the size for Devonte Smith. I was definitely one that was worried about that when we drafted him. Even though that was my go-to guy in the draft at the very beginning, but I honestly was just that was just one of my biggest fears. But the kid proved me wrong, proved a bunch of us wrong week in, week out. And then as the weeks went on and every game, especially with all the games that we attended and then the away games that we went to go see this kid, I just felt like his progression was just getting better and better every week. The leadership was also just like, just coming along as the weeks went by, because it was just like he was hungry, he was pushing, he wanted that ball like every time, and he started showing like different attitudes, like, I want to be that guy, or get me the ball a little bit more. Let me show what I can go ahead and do, and that's the stuff that we love. That's the leadership we want, and you surround him with some more weapons this upcoming year. Evan, I'm with you, man. It could definitely be a different outcome. So I'm hoping that they can go ahead and definitely focus on getting him that help he needs.
Who do you guys think is the last wide receiver we've had that was as technically sound as Devonte Smith?
Technically, as a route runner,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm hard pressed to think of a name, to be honest with you.
I mean, you think of Jason Avant, a guy who wasn't the fastest guy, but who could get open and get separation.
And underrated hands, dude. Like, that dude had fucking hands.
He was doing Odell before Odell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just want to shout out everyone that was up in the chat, by the way. Shout out to Brian, Paul, Mark,
Moira.
We got Jerome in the house, Rome in the house, Alex, the mastermind chef. Shout out to Paul, who just moved to New York, Brooklyn. Shout out to Paul.
Congratulations.
And Terry's in the building. But I mean, overall, I felt like moving along, we all know Devonte is a guy that's going to stay and flourish, and that I'm with it. I'm just excited to see the progression as we get another guy opposite of him, and we'll get more into that. We're going to go through the guys that we have in the on the depth chart as we speak. A guy, Quez Watkins. Quez Watkins. You're talking about a guy who drafted on day 3, but came in and really just made his presence felt. You talk about a guy who could stretch the field. Talk about his relationship with Jalen Hurts. That relationship grew throughout the season. We saw that in the off season, during training camp, during practices that we attended. He just continued to make plays. He's a guy that really stepped up and made his presence felt. You're talking about, Jalen Reagor was a guy that you were expecting for him to flash, but Quez Watkins kind of took that thunder, and he was a consistent playmaker. While everyone might say Quez Watkins is not your ideal wide receiver 2, right now he is that for our group in a sense. What did you guys make of Quez Watkins' season this year?
It certainly impressed me. His overall how much he developed was definitely something that was eye-opening to me. I mean, you look at both him and John Hightower going day 3 in the same draft, and you really look at it and you think, like, if either one of these guys can come out and contribute, that's a win. I feel like they just kind of took a chance on 2 wide receivers, and if either one ended up working on day 3, then it worked. And honestly, in Quez Watkins, we got a deep threat. This guy is capable of those big bomb throws. He's got the speed. But the thing is, it's just it almost feels like, and I don't even want to insult him in saying this, but it feels like the Deshaun Jackson light. He's obviously not Deshaun Jackson. That's not what I'm saying by any means, but he's like the home run hitter. He can hit the home runs. He can have a huge play. But other than that, I mean, he's really not a short yardage, high volume wide receiver. Really, all he is a heavy hitter. So if he can get open downfield and bust open a big play, obviously that's huge for momentum. That's huge for the offense. But he's not a guy that you can lean on all game long like you can volume wise with Devonte Smith.
Yeah, Quez is definitely a keeper in my book. He proved himself on the off season and then going into the season. I mean, I wish we would have definitely got a whole lot more plays to him. It was good seeing this guy, make the plays that he did, go up for the ball the way he did, and the efforts he was making every week was just something that, we were wanting from other receivers. He pretty much proved to the organization, hey, listen, you guys signed me for a reason, let me do my thing. And he did it. So he's definitely one that I would definitely keep on the roster and build off of.
Mm-hmm.
Build off of. Another guy in the nest that I'm not sure a lot of people want to build off what he's been putting down over the last couple of years. Obviously, his career hasn't gone like he had hoped it to be. I saw there was an interview with Justin Jefferson just talking about like the fact that he'll always be compared to, he's like, it's a tough scene out here. In that tough scene, talk about Jalen Reagor over the season, whether it was mental or, just not performing up to task, just the consistency that we love to see, the level of consistency we would like to see from first round wide receiver. That's where you're at. You're like, like whether it's him stepping out of bounds, not having his feet in play, dropping a ball against the Giants, or fumbling a ball in the playoffs. You could there's definitely heartbreaker moments out there. But besides the on the field stuff, the off the field stuff with the social media, the front office being not so happy with some of the things, his father and a lot of people's DMs. I get it. I know that's your son out here getting killed in social media. You stick up for your son. I would do the same thing if that was my son. But
look how it worked out for Odell Beckham.
Hey, at the end of the day, we talk about Devonte Smith, we talk about Quez Watkins. We can do a firm stay with Reagor. It's like, for me, it's like change of scenery. Firm. Yeah, change of scenery. Yeah. Like I just feel like it's just like sometimes things don't work out and you have to move forward. And I feel like with the stuff that we're kind of seeing out there and hearing that, I believe the Eagles are shopping him and trying to figure out what they could do with that situation. Ev, I mean, how you feeling about Mr. Reagor?
I'm disappointed, if I'm being real. I mean, Jalen Reagor is a guy, we got him in the first round. I can take you back to the day that we drafted him. I remember waking up that day, and it was almost like I had like an intuition. I tweeted first thing in the morning as soon as I woke up. It was like, today's the day we draft Jalen Reagor. I just knew he was the pick that day. And I was excited for it. I thought that, you just look at his college career. He had a really, really poor quarterback, and he was still able to make outrageous plays. He was, his catch radius seemed insane. He had these off the charts type of, verticals and speed. But ultimately, when it all comes down together, like when you put the player together, the mental aspect is a part of that. And if that is broken, then the whole player is going to be broken. And that's what I saw in Jalen Reagor, unfortunately. I agree. I think that he is a player that possesses the necessary skills. I just think his mind's all fogged up. I think what would be best for him is a change of scenery. I would wish him the best, but I don't think he's going to be able to cut it here. I think that he's unfortunately dug his hole a little bit too deep. He's kind of, and today was, I'm sorry, not today. This year was a bad year to be going at the fans. You know what I mean? With the whole Ben Simmons thing that went on this year, it would just put bad taste in everybody's mouth. Just any players that were coming back at the fans. And, that I had a little bit of that in my mouth as well. So Jalen Reagor, I wish you the best, but I think you're as good as gone, man.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm really trying to think about how to go upon commenting on this one. But all right, you know what? I'm just gonna be me. Cut this piece of shit. All right, he sucks. He's worthless. He's a disappointment. I was never about Rager. I was always about Jefferson from the get-go. I didn't expect this man to come in here and be a Jefferson because he's not a Jefferson. All right, Jefferson is Jefferson. Rager is Rager. I was getting, people were trying to motivate me to go ahead and get encouraged that this was a good, choice when it came to picking him. And I went and I looked at videos and I tried my hardest. I really did. And I was all on board because, if you're on my squad, I'm going to go ahead and rep you and I'm going to support you as best as I can. But I put too much effort into trying my hardest on being on this guy's, on his side. And I just couldn't do it, man. And this year, pretty much just like, I have to jump ship. Like he's got to go. He's got to definitely go to a different team, or it's got to be a brand new start for him. It's just not working out for him here. I definitely don't wish no bad upon anybody. No, I know the mental health is a serious situation, especially this past year, but he at the same time brought a lot of that onto himself because he didn't know how to stay off of social media. He still had that kid mentality. Like, stop worrying about that. I mean, dude. You did everything in your power to go ahead and get in the NFL. You're there. You need to you need to think better. Especially it's kind of like being professional. You got to be a professional. And he still hasn't to this day found a way to do that. I mean, his dad had to come in a lot of times to go ahead and pretty much come to his defense and all that shit. Like all that shit was just unnecessary. He brought that shit upon himself. But at the end of the day, I want him going. I'm tired. I'm done. I'm cleaning my hands with this dude. So peace.
I think go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think that there really needs to be, I think that this is a relatively new issue. Because if we're looking in the grand scheme of things, social media is new. It's new and involved in all these players having it. I really think that we need to, I remember when we got Kayvon Wallace. I feel like Kayvon Wallace and Jalen Reagor almost have a very similar presence on Twitter. Where I got so hyped up, just I was like, man, this guy's a dog. He seems like he's going to put in all the work and all that. But all it was words, man. People can be persuasive. I mean, the best thing an athlete in Philadelphia that's catching heat can do is go out there on the field and prove us wrong. That's the best thing you could do is go out on the field and prove us wrong. You stay quiet on social media. What we say doesn't matter. We're not the pro athletes.
Exactly.
All we are is nobodies. If you go out there and ball out on the field, then we're going to have nothing but positive things to say about you. But when your only focus is to defend yourself verbally online, that's not going to work. I mean, you have to. There has to be a physical element to that of you showing up.
And I was one that was truly in the building every week to give him that opportunity to prove me wrong.
And it just kept getting worse.
Yeah, I didn't give a shit about Eric, like how prove me wrong.
Yeah.
And especially when I got Gail right next to me, and I'm looking at Gail and I'm telling him, like, look, I'm here.
Wide receiver apologist.
4 quarters to give this kid the opportunity to prove me wrong. And one simple play, of course, I gotta look at Gail. Gail's like, no, that one play was not good enough for me, man. You got it. Like, he couldn't even give me a whole goddamn game.
What we had in Philadelphia was like a weird, like we just started booing players for the first time just by saying people's name. That was the first for me. I haven't seen that ever since I've been going to Eagles games. That's the first time I've seen.
I wasn't surprised by it, though. I mean, if you just look at how this year played out, like that was a guy that we can Coach Sirianni tried consistently, like, all right, you know what? Had a shit week last week. This week, we're going to try and focus on getting him the ball, getting his confidence up. Every time, dude, it was a dropped pass. It was a muffed punt. Every single game, they gave him an opportunity. He messed up, bro.
Look at New York.
It's just, it is what it is.
Look at that New York game. I mean, you dropped a touchdown pass that would have won us the game. And then what did they do? The very next play, they gave it right back to you to prove yourself, to show you, like, dude, you got this. We could, and you fucked that up again. I'm done.
My thing is, like, there's this part where when you talk about becoming a pro, it take your game to the next level. It's like you got to be a pro about things, whether it's mental, whether it's beyond on the field. It's about short-term memory. And that was a perfect example of short-term memory. But going out and making a play and your quarterback giving you the opportunity to flourish even after you had messed up. So, I mean, overall, I mean, The Paul's comment right here. We keep these bad picks for years. How he keeps the mistakes for years. My thing is like, if you know what a guy is worth, what he brings to the table, and then if you double down on that, bringing some of these guys back year after year after year, like Mac Hollins, guys like that, where you're like, what is your role in our offense versus us upgrading the position? That's the thing with me. It's like J-Jaw, we're getting to J-Jaw, but as we move down the lineup here, John Hightower, he's the guy that came in, flashed that separation, was getting that yards. You like what he brought to the table. It looked like he was going to be a guy who was going to be some guy that, a person that could contribute. We heard on the back end, like some people were saying that it was a maturity thing. And yeah, what I heard was like very shocking to me, but where it came from, I was like, okay, wow. All right. Was that why he's not getting this opportunity? But you think, the average yards per separation per route run, he was a guy that was it was up there. So I felt like Hightower, them giving him another opportunity to succeed. It was on the practice squad, but now like he's still on the roster. Do they believe he could be that guy? That'll be interesting. And we just talked about being a pro and taking your game to the next level. Do you guys believe that John Hightower can take his game to the next level?
I think that he can, but it's more of just like I don't know what he really is type of thing, because after his rookie season, I talked about him and Quez getting drafted in the first year, in the same year. After his rookie season, I didn't think of either him or Quez had a leg up on the other. I think that they had a pretty similar rookie season. And then Quez, he just took a huge next step that following year. John Hightower, he was a guy that showed promise, and then I feel like he just got lost in the mix this year. And that's why I'm really confused as to, like, you look at, we're going down a list of people that, like, after Quez Watkins and Devonte Smith, like, it really starts to get pretty irrelevant. And the fact that you weren't able to get yourself in the mix in a wide receiver core that looks like this is concerning. I saw the speed that he brings to the table. But, I kind of, in hindsight, am not a huge fan of that drafting, mindset that we had a few years ago, where all we were going for was speed. Now we're lacking a big body wide receiver. That's what we lack. We thought we were going to get that in J-Jaw, but, we'll get there.
Yeah, Hightower pretty much just went ghost on me. He was somebody that was all in last year. I think we were having the same conversation during free agency, and I was all about bringing John Hightower back, giving him that opportunity. And yeah, he was kind of like where Quez Watkins is at right now. I mean, it first started out like he was hungry. He wanted to go in there and show the organization that they made the right decision by drafting him. And then I don't even remember speaking of this kid at all this past season, besides that one big play we saw that he was wide open and he dropped the pass. But other than that, I can't recall anything from Hightower. I'm gonna be honest with you. At one point, I even thought he wasn't even on the squad anymore.
Well, but he'll be on the squad next year, didn't they? They already
reserved him.
His team option.
Yeah, they reserved him.
Now the next guy, obviously, for those people that are coming in, we are going to start looking at some of the free agents out there. Are going to talk about some of the wide receiver prospects in the draft. But right now we are going through the depth chart over here. Next up on the list, a guy that we met his family at the Washington game as we sat outside the stadium. Very nice family. Had a great moment. We did get to see that intimate moment where between, just family,
mom and son,
just like it was a cool moment to see.
It was a moment. It definitely was a moment.
It's a cool moment. Cool moment to see. But as we speak that, stay or go, J-Jaw. I mean, a guy who I never felt right when the pick was made in the second round. I thought it was way too high. A guy who led the nation in contested catches, had 19 catches, leading the nation. That was pretty cool. But the fact that he just never really, like, you talk about that drop against the Lions. You talk about, how he flashed in that preseason game against the Ravens. I was like, all right, I'm seeing some promise here. But that drop against the Lions, and he did have one solid catch, I guess, against the Giants on that when we were trying to make a push for the playoffs, where he came up with a nice play, and it was like, all right, But overall, it just, again, with all that being said, a second round pick, when guys were like, especially, I guess, we're always going to have those guys that we mentioned, the Metcalfs of the world, the Justin Jeffersons of the world. You can keep on going, but every time you miss, there's going to be a player that you keep on going. I just feel like it's like, again, what going back to Paul's statement about keeping guys longer than you have to, like, and who made these selections after you start wondering, like who was selecting these wide receivers? Like, the fact that y'all can the fact that you can find linemen outside the first round, second round, seventh round, fifth round, Malata, you're talking about Kelsey. These are guys that are day 3 guys.
Think about what you're saying. Jeff Stoutland is the catalyst.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, who's picking these wide receivers? And then I heard rumors of, like, Lurie's son was behind this pick, or, Lurie was behind this pick. So overall, I know we interviewed Brandon Hunt. He was a scouting coordinator from the Steelers. And I always go back to that because I'm like, hey, man, they're going to bring him in. They're going to teach us how to draft wide receivers. That was a lot being said. So, I mean, J-Jaw, there we go, Evan.
I think it's pretty simple. I mean, I would really challenge anybody, especially anyone inside the Eagles organization, to give me a pitch as to why he should stay on the team. I want to hear the honest pitch as to why J-Jaw has earned a spot on the roster going forward. Because last year they tried to sell us the bullshit of, well, he's so valuable as a blocker. Okay. It's like, there's a bunch of guys, tight ends block. Like, you know what I mean? Like, all he is a tight end that can't catch. That's all he is. And so he blocks worse than a tight end because he's a wide receiver and he can't catch. So he doesn't bring any value. If I'm being real, like, I'm not even trying to be harsh on J-Jaw. You mentioned how we had this intimate moment with his family and all that. But if I'm keeping it a buck, I think this is his last NFL contract.
No,
this is it. Yeah.
I think
who signs him? Well, like, who is looking around the league and it's like, you know what? Let's try.
If you talk about practice squad, someone will take a chance on it.
Yeah, I mean, I can see the lines of somebody picking over his side. I don't know.
I don't say it.
I mean, he never got started. Never got started. Like, he kept it in first gear and he's been stuck in first gear ever since, man. There was
maybe
really,
Park. Stuck in Park, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. You know what? I guess I was just trying to be. I guess I was just being too nice. But yeah, I mean, besides the moment with your family, man, shout out to the moms and to the rest of the family that was there. That was definitely a moment. But other than that, keeping it 100, dude, you got to go too. Like, I mean, if you got to be the one that hold Rager's baggage is why you guys both walk out, hey, so be it. But
he's already
just
got his hand full with an umbrella, bro.
Well. Hook that shit to your belt or something. I don't know, man. But like we put a lot of effort into waiting for you to come around and do something, and that day just never came. And I mean, I don't know. It's scary to even think you might be right, Evan, that could be his one and only contract that he's ever gonna get.
I hear what you're saying. That, like, a practice squad. I mean, how many? If you think about, there's probably a little bit over 160 wide receiver positions that are in the NFL when it's all said and done. Is he a top 160 wide receiver in the league? I don't know.
My only theory is, like, go ahead, gain more weight and put your ass at tight end.
I mean, yeah, they pitched the part about him blocking, but I mean,
I said, bro, make him a tight end. Like,
if they can turn Tebow into a tight end,
if they can turn Jordan Matthews to the tight end, that could be your next best option. But
that should be really telling. Like, if they're just trying to move you around in a position to try and force you to make you work, maybe it's possible that you're just not a good football player. That could also just be the thing.
It's tough, man. Tough. It's tough scene out here. Tough crowd. Philadelphia, tough crowd. I mean, it's a tough crowd. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But moving forward, a guy who we're all high on. Like I think I'm projecting here, but I think we're all high on him as a a versatility guy, a utility guy, a guy who's worked his way off the practice squad to come up and play some really good snaps. You talk about leading the team in first down catches just only a year ago. Talking about a guy who can be your backup quarterback if you need him. A guy who can be your backup punt returner. Just talking about a depth guy, and that guy is Greg Ward Jr. Obviously, he's I believe he's a restricted free agent, but I feel like Greg Ward, he's been I'd say the definition of consistency for a depth piece. Like, he's been consistent when you call upon his name, he still will make plays. Talk about that Washington game the game that you guys missed. To this day, I still wish you guys were there. But I mean, talk about a guy who's just come up and made plays when, again, made his way off the practice squad and impressed and worked. So, but at the end of the day, as much as I I pretty much stand for Greg Ward. I think before the show, me and Evan had spoke about Greg Ward. I just feel like it's, if we're gonna make changes to this group, it's time to like rehaul the group. And that has nothing to do with Greg Ward Jr.'s play. It's just a matter of like, all right, let's rehaul this group.
I actually think I have a really good comparison for Greg Ward for all of the for all my Sixers fans out there. You know who Greg Ward is? He's TJ McConnell. That's who Greg Ward really feels like to me. He's a guy that he was a good contributor. Like, look at when Greg Ward stepped up to the plate. He stepped up to the plate when we had absolutely no wide receivers whatsoever. Everybody talks about the year that Greg Ward came in and he led the team in receiving yards, even though he started the year as a practice squad player. And that was this big deal. I mean, you look at TJ McConnell, he was like this decent player during the process. That's kind of how I view it. We were in the middle of the process as the Eagles and in our growing pains. And we had this player that stepped up and he contributed, but ultimately he's not going to be the guy when we reach the pinnacle of our team. So Greg Ward, I agree with you. I think that ultimately we know what Greg Ward is at this point in his career. I think he is a wide receiver 4 or 5 on an NFL team. I think you can rely. I think he has reliable hands, but ultimately he's not going to have big flashy plays. He's going to be reliable. He'll get you, 300 yards, 450 yards a year, but it's not going to be a guy that is going to be your top wide receiver. I think that, you say thank you to Greg Ward for what he's done, and you wish him the best, but ultimately you bring in another younger guy with a potentially higher ceiling.
The key word was reliable. The fact that I'm gonna go ahead and pity pack off of that, because Greg Ward is that when things don't go right, or when you're in such a drought, no pun intended, but you fall back on that booty call. That's that booty call, man. That's what Greg Ward is. And that's just how he's been for the past few years. So I think it's time to move on from him, and it's time to, bring that fresh booty back into the squad and get rid of that guy. We're past that. I mean, he's been key. He was key last year. I mean, he was tremendous last year with the last, with the situation that we were in. But it's time, man. Greg Ward, I'm over it.
He's over.
I mean, I'm not gonna even go back to your reference about who he is to you. He's that. No, I'm not gonna even go there. I'm not. No.
He's talking about.
I was like, I'm just gonna stop.
He's that fallback. He's that fallback.
He's that warm pillow. Yeah. I mean, talk about a guy who I said to Evan, I said, hey, Ev, Ev, what do you think about this dude? And he's like, who? he said who? I mean, Deion Kane.
This is the first that I'm even hearing of this guy.
Why don't you tell us about Deion Kane? Because I got nothing to say about him.
Is there a,
I mean,
is there a Wikipedia on
Can I phone a friend?
I mean, he's a guy. He's just a guy at this point.
He's a jack.
You know, you talk of just a jack.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about upgrading this whole group. This is why it's just going to be such more of a fun podcast as we get to who we can bring in. Because like
So
naming off those guys.
If we're at Dion Cole, I think we're at the end of the list.
I think we could just jump into that right now. Could I actually skip over that?
We're not gonna even go there. We're just gonna like we need to talk about what we need to do free agent wise. I mean, you know, obviously you can bring some draft prospects in here who can come and compete. You know what I mean? But it's not gonna be Deion Kane. Watch Mans become our like wide receiver.
He's gonna be our next Greg Ward.
So moving right along, obviously, you know, but first we got a little announcement. We have some guy who's got a podcast, Super Bowl champion. We have Chris Long coming on tomorrow. Chris Long is going to be stopping by the Nest. That is episode 265. That'll be at 2:30 tomorrow Eastern Standard Time. So Chris Long is going to be stopping by the Nest. If you guys want to join in the fun, come by, ask him some questions. We should have some fun with Chris Long. It's pretty awesome, right?
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
Should I have led with that?
No,
I think it came out at the right time.
I think it's the right time.
I mean, anything.
All the real ones that are still listening, you got the leg up right now. You know when to tune it.
Shout out to Chris Malley. He during the season, he went to Chris Long's event, hung out with him, struck it. You know, they struck up a great relationship. Had a good time at his event. And now he's going to come on the pod and talk about whatever he wants to talk about. Because that's Chris Long. He can do whatever he wants to do. So if you want to bring some questions, come by and talk to a legend, Chris Long.
And he's a dude that's always got he's always got a lot of good stuff to say too, man. I really enjoy his podcast, and I think tomorrow's going to be a good one for sure.
Yeah, for sure. But talking about some legends that we need to bring in here. Let's see. This is PFF's top ranked wide receivers, the free agents that are on the market. The numbers on the side are their numbers as they feel like Devonte Adams is their number one overall free agent to be had. So now you can do the math here. So obviously,
you the worst one as an example. It's one on the list on the left and the right.
So just thinking Devonte Adams. Everybody would love to have Devonte Adams. Devonte Adams would be the perfect veteran wide receiver to come across the way besides Devonte. So Devonte times 2. That would be amazing. Like this would be the dream like scenario. Not that I even think this is happening, but right now there haven't been any contract extension talks with the Packers. So if you want to be that your dream right now scenario is still alive. It's still alive. But obviously we're all excited about Devonte Adams, right? Group.
I'll wear my pajamas inside out and sleep with a spoon under my pillow. If that's what it takes. Whatever it takes to get Devonte Adams here, man. We already know he looks good in green, man. Obviously, that's that is the biggest home run that Howie Roseman could hit this offseason. If he lands Devonte Adams, I mean, he's in my opinion, and it's really not like just my thought, but like he's well regarded as the top wide receiver in the league currently. He's in the middle of his prime. There's no reason to not want Devonte Adams on your team. He instantly makes you at least closer to a contender. We need to work on the defense, but he definitely vaults you up the power rankings.
The tagging starts today or tomorrow? Tagging starts soon. Do you think by any chance he gets tagged?
We'll see.
Yeah. But they could tag and trade as well too.
Yeah. I mean,
look, Devonte Adams is the perfect scenario in a perfect world, but I mean, let's not keep our hopes up for that because I just don't see it happening. But
There's
Yeah,
some
I mean,
other good names on that list, though, man.
absolutely, and that's
Yeah.
why. I mean, I think if we're going to be realistic, getting into the more of the middle of this list is where we can start making more possibility for us.
These guys skipping ahead over here. But the PFF's prediction for Devonte Adams is him going back to Green Bay, scoring a 4-year, $93 million, $65 million guaranteed. That's
Holy
according to.
guacamole.
And Jerome says someone is going to have pay Adams QB money. As good as he is, you have to pass on him. Again, that's a dream-like scenario. We all can dream, right?
We're dreaming.
Yep.
We'll go back to Prime's list here. I'll go moving right along. Number 2, Chris Godwin, a guy who obviously he's a local Delaware legend. I think Chris Godwin would fit right in. Obviously he dealt with the ACL tear, not quite to the very back end of the season. It was like what? It was like 5 games right before the end of the season. He tore his ACL. Was that it?
I think his last game was versus the Saints.
Okay.
December 19th. Yep.
So I mean, Chris Godwin. What do you guys feel about Chris Godwin?
I mean, that's another top wide receiver in the league, man. Like how you said right there. I mean, he is the 3rd overall available free agent in all of football right now. I think that's a pretty good ranking considering I think he's an elite type player. You pair him up with Devonte Smith, big things can happen. I think that's exactly the formula. I told you at the top of the show, I think you sign one of these names that are on this list and you draft a wide receiver on day 2. We're living, baby. Godwin, bring him here.
Yeah,
local guy.
Yeah, Godwin's definitely key. I mean, me personally, I'm just a little bit worried about the fact that he got that ACL injury.
ACL.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that leaves me hesitant.
We went down that road before where we signed Wallace a couple years ago off of an ACL injury, and look, he decided
he broke his leg though, didn't he? Afterwards,
it was something, but I mean, it's just those type of things that I just worry about, when it comes to signing, free agents like in that position.
Right.
Now, Adam Michael says Gibbs. I went to AMG. That's his. I'm going to say AMG for now on. 3 ACL tear guys on this list, unfortunately. But let's like start looking at the realistic approach. We're going to take the prime approach, and we're going to skip right ahead on this list. I know Evan has been gassed up and geeked up about Mike Williams. Like, about a big body target. You talk about the guy who wins in the air, wins the 50-50 targets. He's a guy who I've always admired his game. You talk about a guy who across the way, if you want to diversify your wide receiver group, Mike Williams is that guy.
Dude. For me, if you're looking at that list, I personally have him ranked above Chris Godwin. I would prefer Mike Williams. I know that both of them are dealing both injury prone, both dealing with injuries, but you just look at the upside of Mike Williams. I mean, I believe he's younger, but on top of that, just the sheer size of him, man. What is he, like 6'4", huge body? That's exactly the prototypical type player I want playing on the other side of Devonte Adams. See, I got Freudian slip there. That's the exactly type of wide receiver I want playing opposite of Devonte Smith. If you just think about that, like, you have the burner, the technician that Devonte Smith is, and then you pair it up with a big body and Mike Williams. There's plenty of different ways we can get the ball down the field. I'm all about it, man. I would be all about Mike Williams coming in.
Yeah, looking at this list realistically, Mike Williams probably falls as the number 1 go-to guy to go and focus on signing. Devonte, Chris Godwin, those are ones that are kind of like way out of the, not saying out of our league, but just kind of hard to go ahead and focus on, especially with the big money that they're going to want. With Mike Williams, I think it's one that we could definitely focus on. And, Evan broke down the stats on this guy: his height, his arm length, and his legs, his strength, his agility, all that stuff. So, I mean, why not go all in on Mike Williams?
And then PFF hit their prediction for Mike Williams, he signs with the Chargers, 4 years, 68 million, 38 million guaranteed. So that would be some big money. Some big money. Now moving right down the list, Odell Beckham obviously tears ACL, gets a Super Bowl championship with the Rams. Kind of damaged goods right now. Kind of like, you know what I mean? Getting up there in age, towards ACL. Boy still can play, but I'm just saying. Talk about ACLs here. Allen Robinson, a guy who's been talked about over and over, especially by Penn State fans that are in the Philadelphia area. Allen Robinson, I know Prime said he's not a big fan of Allen Robinson. Is that true?
I'm kind of with you, Prime. I'm kind of with you, Prime.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest.
Yeah,
I'm not huge on him.
And like I said, Alshon Jeffrey messed that up for me. So,
I mean, but looking back on that whole Alshon Jeffrey thing, I almost feel like we owe Alshon an apology, man.
why's that?
I mean, he was the one that kind of broke the story that Carson Wentz isn't a good teammate. And now in hindsight, is he not? Carson's not a good teammate.
Well,
He doesn't-
okay,
you see-
but I
you see
mean,
that story?
the man can't go and contradict himself because he became one of the worst teammates himself. All right.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Now, Paul, in the middle of this wide receiver discussion, is throwing like a little curveball to the group. Outside of the money, how much of a factor is our QB for a wide receiver for choosing the Eagles as a destination? You talking about Devonte Adams? Devonte Adams is looking for a quarterback. Could that be his former teammate who plays for the Raiders? Is it following Aaron Rodgers wherever the hell Aaron Rodgers goes, or whatever the hell Aaron Rodgers is on right now? Because that dude is just
Dude, that's
He's all over the
that
place.
it was weird as hell.
he's all over the place. So
the man's got he's got the ball in his control, bro.
because Aaron Rodgers is so good that he's from a off the field perspective, it's been all over the charts. Dude.
He's playing
all
that.
over the charts.
He's playing that Jeopardy role right now with the NFL. Choose your category. Name your amount.
And he was on-
be?
And he was on Jeopardy. Like the levels of like
What are you
he's up
wagering?
he's here, like making some controversial statements about the vaccine. Is his family not talking to him?
And is it me, or did all of this all come out of nowhere? Aaron Rodgers has been in the league for like 15 years. I feel like he just started being controversial. I didn't hear anything controversial about Aaron Rodgers like the first 13 years of his career. And now all of a sudden, like he's enemy number one.
I go back to his appearance on Jeopardy, man. He just has that mentality. Let me find some categories to go ahead and talk about this season, right?
This actress
talk about the feet. We talk about the pandemic. We talk about my hair being long. We'll talk about these whack ass suits I wear to these award ceremonies. Shit like he's got categories like crazy.
He looked like the villain on Red Dead Redemption or some shit. Like you had to go for. I was like, bro, what is this? What is this? And then he had the man bun, the weird man bun, and then his Hollywood wife calls off the wedding. Like a lot of stuff going on with Aaron Rodgers. So, with all that being said. We don't know where Devonte Smith is going to land, but Devonte Adams is going to land. If that's going to be, I mean, it's an interesting factor. We could talk about another.
I know that there's a lot of people that are talking about too that they think that Aaron Rodgers and Devonte Adams are some sort of package deal. Like no matter where Aaron's playing next year, Devonte's like logistically, how does that even work? Like how do you really think that? Like you heard what Devonte Adams is looking for in his contract, and then what Aaron Rodgers is going to want pennies on the dollar. Who has the money for both of them? That's just not a realistic possibility in my mind. I don't know. Maybe I get surprised.
Moving right along this list over here. If we're gonna get realistic here,
I like
obviously
that one.
Michael Gallup, ex-Cowboy.
Don't me. That dude has torn us up for years. I would be about it, man. You don't want Michael Gallup just because he's a Cowboy?
I'm just saying. Like for
Cowboys
energy vibes. Like, do I really want another Cowboy in here?
Nope.
Yeah, I know. He also got injured too. So okay.
Yeah, he did. But I feel like
and he ran into a fence.
Now
I
we
want
can
him more than number 7 on that list.
Antonio Brown is a like how many Eagle fans have asked for Antonio Brown
Yeah.
over the years?
I mean, going all the way back to when we were in the Wells Fargo Center. I remember that. And we were having this same type of conversation, like, yeah, I don't know. You know, he kind of messes up a locker room. And for anybody that doesn't think that he does that, I mean, I would just look at his last NFL game he played in.
That's a way to go off, though.
I guess.
Like, if that's gonna be your last game,
you're gonna go out that way.
and now he's hanging with Kanye at the Super Bowl. I think he's staying on par for weirdest fucking off season.
Yeah,
he became the president of his fan club, something like that. All right.
Man, I'm telling you. I don't know. Paul, shout out to Paul from London Town. Gallup and Brown is a hell no. Mark says, don't need the AB circus in Philly. Big Blue Mini says, we've been burned by so many former Cowboys. Shout out to Mr. Austin. And also,
I feel like you got to treat these like a case-by-case basis, though. Like, just because DeMarco Murray didn't work out here doesn't mean that Michael Gallup can't.
Oh, how many people don't want to draft the USC wide receiver?
Wait. You just stopped at DeMarco Murray. We had DeMarco Murray. We had Scandrick.
Herschel Walker was good.
Austin. Oh, man, I don't even consider him. Nah, Herschel Walker was the man. Who else?
Was
the man. Was the man. I mean, you just mentioned one. I mean, I got 3, 4 that I could think of that.
Yeah, but I don't like with you, like with Orlando Scandrick, that was just like his career was over at that point. You know what I mean? like we brought in DeMarco Murray while he had his prime going on, and I honestly think DeMarco Murray would have been better had it not been Chip Kelly here calling the shots.
True that.
I think DeMarco Murray could have had a better season.
And he showed that in the last game of the season. Like, look, you know what I mean? I could be that straight go-to running back instead of this east to west shit.
Now, with all that being said with this list, you know, it was fun. We had a little fun mental exercise. Correct? Right?
I had fun.
Yeah, you had fun. I mean, this is the more realistic part of the list. You know, Juju Smith-Schuster is a guy that has been rumored. If you've been listening to us for a little bit, and that's stuff that we have heard. And then Christian Kirk is another guy who's the Eagles were trying to get their hands on him during this season. They're trying to, obviously, we all saw tight end number 1, Zach Ertz, move to the Arizona Cardinals. I know that they were trying some way to get Christian Kirk out of that deal. And here we are, you know, Christian Kirk and Juju Smith-Schuster, 2 guys who've been over the year have been linked to the Eagles, perhaps. But I heard Juju could be a realistic thing. You talk about a veteran guy across the way from Devonte Smith who can win in the slot, and then that would be interesting. I mean, how are you guys feeling about? I mean, we could talk about all 3 of them together. Or a lot of because we'll hear a lot of DJ Chark and a lot of Juju. So
well, I mean, I was kind of going to bring up the third guy. I mean, if we're deciding between those 3 guys, and it kind of contradicts what I was saying about wanting a big bodied wide receiver. I just love Christian Kirk as like a deep threat. Christian Kirk is like another player. I think he's like a better Quez Watkins, really. And I really love the production I saw out of him this past year. And between him, Juju, and Chark, I would personally want Christian Kirk over either of those 2.
The best scenario that I could think of that we could go with is one, your boy Mike Williams. I like Christian Kirk. And then there's one that is not on this list that Gail was showing, but there's one that I talked about before we hopped on the show.
Moritz Ringer.
Braxton Berrios from the New York Jets is an unrestricted free agent. I love this dude. Not only does he represent the U, all right, but I mean, the man can play his ass off. And we saw it in New York when we went to the Jets game. I'm a big fan of his. I think that would be a steal. You bring that kid onto this squad. You sign those 3 in the offseason along with Devonte Smith, and let's just say we hold on to Quez Watkins. You got Hightower as a reserve. I think we're in a way better direction than where we're at right now.
So you're thinking that's your upgrade to Greg Ward, guy who could play punt returner, special
Hell
teams,
yeah.
and be a.
Hell yeah.
Now, shout out to Carmen. He's talking about Calvin Ridley, obviously, but he'd have to be traded.
He would have
That
to be
would
traded.
that would be a trade scenario.
Yeah.
We've got pieces that we can unload though too.
Yeah, I mean, cut me open. I mean, that's so kind of like again DJ Chark, a guy who could stretch the field, and Kirk as well. I mean, that would these are guys that would make a little bit more sense if you're not hitting the home run with Devonte Adams, but.
Let me ask you guys and the chat, like just looking at this list right here, give me your top three. Let's leave. I mean, everybody's number one is going to be Devonte Adams. So let's just eliminate Devonte Adams. Who is your top three choices that you would want from this list in order?
Like, I would love Chris Godwin in terms of like determining how healthy he is, but like you're talking about guys that can be playmakers, and he's consistently shown in his young career. Obviously, he's injured, but that would be nice. Like I'm not mad at that. The Mike Williams love is a real for me. You talk about the big body target. That's Allen Robinson. Like his seasons, he's dealt with injuries, and obviously he wouldn't be the most exciting signing of this group. I take it because it's better than any of these guys are better than anything that we have here. Obviously,
Totally.
OBJ, I love it. If he wasn't injured, talk about like spicing up the group. I think the whole Juju thing, it's outside the overall perspective. People don't really like if you want to get a guy who can win in the slot, a guy who can get separation. And that's what you kind of like. Who is the guy that's going to come in here and be a favorite weapon for your QB, and not cost you a lot of money?
Right. Yeah, if I'm looking at it, I mean, obviously, my number one I've been talking about is Mike Williams. I think he is the perfect fit if he can stay healthy to line up on the other side of the field. Just as far as diversity in our wide receiving core. So Mike Williams, and then I'm telling you, I love Gallup, man. Like there's one thing that's one of those players that I fear every time we go up against the Cowboys, because I know he has a history of tearing us up. He does it all the time, and to get him off the Cowboys and keep him from doing that, and B, have him do that for us, I think would be very, very valuable, and I think the price could be right. And same sort of story for Christian Kirk. He's not exactly that big body. He's kind of small, but he can stretch the field. And I think he would be a step up from Quez Watkins. And I think, we add him into the mix, definitely improves things.
Mike Williams, Juju, Christian Kirk. Those are my three off that list. Those are the ones that I would definitely target.
Well, shout out to Jay. We got our
These bitches love Sosa.
I love when we get comments from different platforms, because we hardly ever get people from Twitch. But shout out to Jay, one of the first Twitch comments ever. Little tear running down my now Bloom Beanie says, what's the date for the free agency to open? That is March 16th. 4 p.m. Eastern. Set your clocks. Tell your whole family. Let's get ready for that. I mean, I think like
when does
again
the tampering window open up?
They're tampering already, dude. They've been, those guys have been been trying to get quarterbacks, been trying to get players at the Pro Bowl. Darius Slay has been working overtime. That's one guy who's always working overtime.
Yeah.
So just thinking about, we just went through the free agency list. Obviously, we're not going to go super in depth on like wide receivers in the draft, but we're going to bring up some names to, because we're hitting that mark. We either talk about food or go off the rails.
We've only got about a minute to get some wide receiver names in here.
So you talk about Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State, a guy who's been super explosive. This list could be, this list right here is according to the Athletic. Jamison Williams, the guy who went from Ohio State to Alabama and had a bet on himself, had a phenomenal season. That would be amazing. You talk about a guy who's definitely a deep threat, ACL tear not good for his stock. But obviously still a first round talent. Traylon Burks from Arkansas, big body target. Talking about a guy who can come in here, be that guy opposite. Like if we see the Mike Williams love from Evan over here, but you're talking about a guy who also playing the slot. Chris Olave from Ohio State, little route guy, junior, very reliable target for Ohio State. Olave and Garrett Wilson are the reason why Jameson Williams had to transfer. Now you talk about Drake London, big body target, 6'5", 212. Led the nation in contested catches with 19. Jahan Dotson, vertical threat, 3-level threat, home run hitter. A lot of people love him. Obviously, Penn State people everywhere in Philadelphia. Talk about David Bell, another guy who's he's not the flashiest, but he's a guy who shows up, make plays. Looking past that, those are your guys that are on day 2 who could be people that we could target in later rounds, 2nd to 3rd round range. Obviously, Alec Pierce is another guy. There's some big look at Justin Ross.
I noticed a name that's not on here that we've talked about.
Christian Watson, would that be it?
That would be it.
Yeah. Christian Watson is another guy.
You know how I like my big bodies, bro.
North Dakota State, a guy who showed out at the Senior Bowl. So obviously, people are excited about his game. Christian Watson, huge fan of Chris O'Malley, is a huge fan of Watson's game. So from that list,
do you think he's a day 2 or 3 guy?
His stock has probably moved into the back end of day 2. I mean, obviously, you'd love to get him day 3, but I think from what he did, he couldn't be covered. He really did put in work down on the Senior Bowl,
and we got clearance for the combine as well. That's big news.
What's that? Oh, it's happening.
Combine's going on. Yeah.
We're hoping to get Tony Pauline. Believe Podcast Network reached out and said they were looking at, hey, if you'd like to interview Tony Pauline, if you guys don't know who Tony Pauline does work with the Eagles, does a lot of work in the scouting community. We're looking to get Tony Pauline on the podcast. He's a guy he's helping us preview the combine so we're trying to schedule that interview. He's a guy. He's pretty awesome. So I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm right there with you, John.
Hey,
it's something about those SC wide receivers that just make me nervous, bro.
Oh, see, you talk about this is what we just talked about.
No, it's a mental thing. I realize that Drake London isn't the wide receivers that's come out of SC and past, but it's those SC wide receivers that make me nervous.
But you talk about he's a big body target, man.
Totally. I mean, 6'5", that's huge.
Let's see. Gail, Adam says, Gail, what's the Texas wide receiver Eric Azumana? Something with good size. Yeah, I think Adam Michael Gibbs says Jalen Tolbert definitely surprised the folks down there. Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, a guy that I was watching down there. He's a guy that, again, big body target, got some speed too. I like it. But overall, it's a matter of like bringing guys in here that have upside and ability, that the kind of ability we don't have in this room. We're talking about consistency. We're talking about hands. We're talking about across the way. Pretty much just hanging out in the back. But overall, I mean, have you guys, not everybody's dug into the wide receivers yet. Have you guys found any wide receivers in the top first that you like?
Yeah, Traylon Burks is one of those names that I keep coming back to. I mean, you just look at the size and the production he's at. Olave as well. I really like Olave. I remember there being a lot of hype about him last year as well, and he was deciding on whether or not to come out into the draft. And yeah, he seems like he's remained at the top of that list, and I think either one of those guys I'd be happy with. Yeah, I said, those SC wide receivers, they give me the heebie-jeebies.
Wilson's the only person that I've been watching tape on. I haven't really caught up with any of the other guys, but we try to focus on that.
Yeah, Garrett's explosive, man. Garrett's super explosive, dude. Like his dad was a former NBA star, I guess, believe played for the Nuggets or whatever, but a guy who's super explosive. Definitely got the finesse. You're talking about a guy across from Devonta. You're talking about, that's what I'm saying. Like if you get two guys that can get that kind of explosion, separation, you're not relying on one of your wide receivers getting taken out of the game, and then here we are. Can your number two win? Can your number, and then you got Juju playing the slot or whatever. Come on, man. Like a 1, 2, 3. Like now we're doing something.
Now we're talking.
We're doing something. Obviously, I know if Prime could draft Braxton Berrios, he would. Because I know he loves his Canes, but I mean, hey, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, there are going to be more positions that we tackle. What position would you want to hit next, guys?
I mean, me and you talked before we jumped on the show. I think we need to have a conversation about that running back room, man.
Okay,
I think
Brian, running backs
to be had.
Running back's the position, man. Evan put me on to somebody that I'm keen on.
Oh, you've been looking?
Yeah,
checking him out. Nice,
yeah,
right?
man. Yeah, man. Yeah, we're gonna save that for the next one. We're gonna save that for the next one.
Now, before we get out of, Brian says, I like to call Blue Mini Brian because I feel like it's Brian.
Stop with this shit, Meanie.
Hey, Brian.
Shout out to Meanie as well. I'm sorry about everything that happened this past week. I saw that with a friend.
Man.
That was
Prayers.
very tragic. Yeah, prayers
to you guys.
Prayers out, man. Now, Blue Meanie says, any opinions on the USFL and the Stars coming back? The Stars just drafted Brian Scott in the first round. Let the controversy start. Like, because Evan was like, man, he's like, what do you think about the Stars? I'm like, I don't give a damn.
The fact that they're called Stars, I mean, I was like, here we go.
Oh, do you see who else got drafted in the first round? Former Eagle.
Who's that?
Clayton Thorson got drafted in the first round. Congrats, Clayton. Yeah, but that's what I was saying to Gail, is that, like, we were talking about this USFL, and personally, like, if I'm gonna be real with you, I think it's stupid. Like, that's me being blunt about it. Like, stupid. I think it's stupid. Like, I view it like I don't sit around and watch AA baseball. That's what it feels like to me. Like, you know what I mean? It's just minor league football. That's all it really feels like. So I guess it's good in the times where there isn't NFL football going on, but at the same time, it's a watered down product. It's like going to, a local field and watching some pickup games going on. Like,
so is that you're saying that's going to steal the thunder of the Philadelphia Soul, who are no longer around, right? Correct?
Who are no longer around. But we're champions for quite some time.
I remember the Philadelphia Soul won that championship. They were all paraded, and they had like real fans out there.
Yeah,
it started to run, man.
Games. Like I saw, like they were doing like some parade. And that wasn't a parade, but there was like some super fan from the Soul, and like dude had blackface. I was like, bro, that's not really the right. Like that's, you gotta, like, did someone tell you that that's not a good look? But it was yeah. Anyway, but before we get out of here, definitely want to plug Chris Long will be stopping by the Nest tomorrow, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. Legend will be talking about the Eagles and life after football and anything you guys might want to talk about. So if you want to talk to Chris Long, maybe ask that question that has been burning in your soul, like for the last couple of years. I mean, you want to ask him a question, hopefully we can bring up some of those questions during the show, and hopefully he'll be able to answer. But shout out to the legend, Chris Long. Shout out to Chris Malley for linking up with Chris Long, man. He's a guy who's, I was trying to think about this. Besides Chris Long, who's the quickest that the fan base has fell in love with than Chris Long? A player that is.
I got a name that came to mind. Carson Wentz. When he first came here, we were in love.
No, I'm not saying like a guy that we drafted. I'm talking about
like a jokester, one that acts like us.
Well, I'm saying like free agent that we brought in that like quickly Like the whole fan base fell.
Just based off their personality, or based off of
Football or any sport?
Anything that
TO?
we fell in with.
TO work?
Scott,
T.O.'s up there, yeah.
Mike Scott.
Mike Scott.
Mike Scott.
Interesting.
Feels weird having Mike Scott in a conversation with TO and Chris Long. Evan Mathis. That's an interesting one. Asante,
yeah. Asante was a guy that everyone fell in love with right away.
Connor Barwin was a guy that really.
This is true. John,
Yeah,
correct.
Connor Barwin was definitely one of those guys for sure. Still rides SEPTA. I SEPTA Philly.
How about can we say Brandon Brooks?
Yeah.
Or that-
Brandon Brooks.
It took some time. He wasn't.
I feel like,
He was here too long. Because like Chris Long was here only a matter of not that long.
yeah. Trying to think about who else.
I don't know, man. It's kind of hard.
Trying to think about defensively on that side of the ball. Malcolm Jenkins, it took a while for people to really get behind him. Slay is a good answer.
Slay.
Everybody was big on Slay.
Okay. AMG. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I like that
AMG.
nickname too. AMG. Is that a gun on
I think so, yeah.
Oh,
Damn.
Bynum. Oh my
I can't
god.
think of his name. Hollis Thomas.
Okay.
All right. Well, that's it. That'll have us up all night. This question. But before we
Jim
get out of here,
Thome.
Mark Semino.
James Harden.
James Harden. James Harden. Yeah. Okay. I'll take that. Hasn't even played a snap yet. A snap. He hasn't even played a. Hasn't even played it.
Yo, what are the odds that this name comes up?
Dhani Jones.
Me and Gail were talking about Dhani Jones earlier today. That's wild that you threw that up there.
The guitar playing Dhani Jones. Yeah, man, that's crazy. Alshon, I'll give Alshon.
Yeah. I'll give Alshon out. Yeah.
Prime's he's feeling a certain way. Man helped us. Any dude that helped us win a Super Bowl. I don't care.
I'll man. Yeah, I hear you.
I got one.
Prime gave me Alshon's jersey.
Very similar to this one, Byron Maxwell. I was hyped when we got Byron Maxwell.
Never had.
Only to be quickly disappointed.
Nah, that dude killed it for the Byron Maxwell.
Never hyped. Never hyped.
Cliff Lee's return. I was thinking about baseball. I could.
The fact that he even brought this up just kills me.
How about Babin? Babin, people don't realize how many sacks Babin had.
Jason Babin,
20, bro.
Man, I never forget
18,
the one. I never
19
forget
sacks.
the one game I went to, and that's when he was his bullshit. He literally was the one person that was standing by himself while the whole squad was all together. I used to see Jason Babin all the time at the gym, so yeah, he's all right.
He's like, give me a spot. No, man, get out of here. But before we get out of here, any last words, Brian, before we get out of here?
Just have safe week, man. Shout out to you guys for joining us. Other than that, just stay tuned for tomorrow's show with the legend Chris Long. Looking forward to that. And like always, fly Eagles fly, baby.
Evan. Hey, first of all, Evan, like if you didn't see the video of Evan parking his car, this guy's a psycho. Like he doesn't care about his bumpers or anything. Move your car.
Please go move your car.
I don't know if I can.
Please.
Dude, I've got about an inch on
I'm afraid.
either side.
I'm afraid somebody's gonna leave a message. But
They might. But I'm still feeling pretty high about that. But yeah, I would just say tune in tomorrow. Unfortunately, I will not be able to make it. So Gail, I give you my blessing. I hope that it's a great interview tomorrow. But make sure everybody go check it out. And if I blocked you in parking, sorry.
Yeah, shout out to Chris Long for coming on tomorrow. Shout out to Chris Malley. Shout out to y'all in the chat who were blessing us with comments all show. Obviously, again, we're gonna probably hit the running back position next, and you guys can talk about potential free agent running backs. I don't know. You guys got something up your sleeve, perhaps? Maybe a draft prospect, maybe.
I got one in mind.
Okay.
I want mine.
All right. But for me and the guys, we'll see you guys in the next one. As always, fly, Eagles, fly.